real early treat to have Joe Maddon, of course. Always one of the most interesting guys in baseball when he was managing the Tampa Bay Rays, took them to the World Series out of nowhere, went to Chicago, made baseball history, won the World Series, also managed Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout down in Anaheim. So with the hiring of Tony Vitello on the Giants, our producer John Joe Curley got working and said, let's ask one of the more interesting guys in the game about this interesting hire. We have him, Joe Maddon, on the UMA guest line right now. So, Joe, welcome out to San Francisco. Brian Murphy, Markus Boucher, the Murph and Markus show. And how you doing this fine Veterans Day Tuesday morning, Joe? Good morning.
Hey, morning, Joe.
Wonderful. Good morning, guys. And you guys are up early, huh?
Yeah, bright and early.
We're doing the old farmer thing. You know what I mean? Get up early, milk the cows, do something like that. I do
the same thing back here, so we're on the same page.
You're a good man. All right, well, let's start with the big picture question. Giants hire Tony Vitello, and it causes all sorts of reaction around baseball. He's the first college coach to become a major league manager, and your reaction was what, Tony or Joe?
Well, quite frankly, I'm using the word insulting only from the perspective that it appears as though you don't have to have any kind of experience on a professional level to do this job anymore. Because when I was coming up, you had to have all that. You had to go through the minor leagues. You had to ride your buses. I was a scout. I started in 1981. I finally got a managerial job in 2006. I mean, there was a rite of passage, a method to get to that point. So to think that somebody could just jump in there and do what you took 20 some years to be considered qualified to do, it is kind of insulting. Now, having said that, the next part is I wish him nothing but the best, because I've watched videos of the guy and I could actually understand why it's perceived that he's ready to do something like this. So I guess the overarching point is, in today's world, prerequisites to get jobs of this caliber, or even jobs like a mere job of New York City now, it doesn't require the years of experience that you may have had to have gone through in the past. I think communication skills, perceived leadership skills, those are the kind of things that become more valid or important, and not necessarily having kind of like internal knowledge, working knowledge of the craft at hand, which would be Major League Baseball or running a city. So it's not just baseball, it permeates the entire world right now.
So is this a good thing or a bad thing for baseball?
I don't think it's either. I think it's just baseball. It's going to be a good thing for the Giants if it works out well, which honestly I am rooting for him. I really liked, because I didn't know of him until he was hired, and then I started looking at videos, and then I said, oh, I get it. I understand why. A great communicator, looks like he works really, really, really hard. And it also sounds like he has an old school blend to his methods, and when he talks about the game. And I heard a little diatribe piece on what do you call teams that the area code teams and things of that nature, or travel ball, stuff like that, and really not paying attention to the actual game itself and being more or less about being best in show kind of stuff. It sounds like he's a fundamentalist, which I really love. And I think with, Buster, where he comes from in Florida State and all that stuff, I think he had to have that also. I think Buster did. So I think it's going to be a blend, which is the right way to do things. It shouldn't be about old school or new school. It should be about what's in school, according to you and what your organization believes in. And that's where I think some groups are missing, because it's become, every organization in baseball really wants to be like every other organization in baseball, not necessarily their own methods. And I think that's what I'm seeing right now with the Giants.
Yeah, and Joe, I wanted to ask you about that blend between Buster Posey and Tony Vitello, because it's interesting, because you look at Tony Vitello, a guy, to your point, never rode the bus and has less major league experience than any other manager out there. But you look at Buster Posey, who rode the bus more than any other president of baseball operations. So what do you think about that unique pairing and what they can do for each other?
Yeah, I think, this is just, I don't know Buster really well, but I do know of him and managed against him. And again, I'm just observing Tony from a distance. I think there's a lot of common ground there. I think the fact that Buster was a college player at a great school university and was so successful, ends up being a number one pick and a World Series champion, coming out of that environment. And I think when he speaks to Tony, there's probably a lot of familiar content of the conversation for him, so that he feels very comfortable about this and he likes it. And I also believe that from the way baseball is being administrator right now, he likes the idea that I think Tony's going to come in there with an open mind and being very open to their methods and their procedures, because regardless of old school, new school, whatever in school, there's still going to be a lot of data analytical input coming from a giant front office. That's just the way the world works right now. So I think they see Tony kind of a nice blend of old and new. That's my perception when I watch him, listen to him speak. And I think that they think that this is a very workable situation where you got a academically oriented now manager that understands both sides and is, I think, obviously going to be willing to work with the front office, because that may be one of the most important components of being a manager in today's game, is not just working with your guys in your clubhouse, but even possibly, or not possibly, more so working with the guys in the front office and primarily your analytical department.
Great to have Joe Maddon on, of course, the World Series champion manager with the Cubs in 2016, longtime Major League coach and manager, Tampa Bay, and, of course, the Angels, too, and just so much baseball knowledge here from Joe here on the UMA guest line. Joe, you can do something for us that we can't do, and take us inside the clubhouse when the reporters are gone and the hierarchy of veteran respect for a skipper and or a coaching staff. So the Giants have these veterans, Matt Chapman, Willie Adames, Rafael Devers, Logan Webb. Those would be the main guys. Tony Vitello walks in. Can you take us into what, I mean, not necessarily the Giants specifically, but how a big league clubhouse would get this guy? How does he get their respect? How does that happen?
Well, I think, and again, I don't know this, but I would bet it's starting right now. I mean, I would almost bet that among all the perceived veterans, leaders within this group, I would bet he's going to visit them in the off season. I'd get on an airplane, or if I had my RV, I would drive to each one of these guys and hang out for a day or two, take them out to dinner, and really try to find some common ground and philosophically exchange what I believe and want to hear what they have to say. Also, I think that'd be a big part of this. And then for me, it's something I did, excuse me, when I was even an interim manager. I was really influenced by what I read back in the day and in the 70s. And actually, I wrote them on a bus riding in Salinas, California. I had to spend a lot of time out in your neck of the woods. And it was a book by James Michener, Centennial, where he talked about the Indians and their imaginative way and intuitive ways of doing things. And the lead bulls, he'd get the lead bull running in the right direction regarding buffalo to a cliff. Now, I'm not asking him to run people over the cliff, but the point is getting your guys running in the right direction, pulling at the same end of the rope. So I had lead bull meeting where I would get, I thought, the most influential guys on the team sit down and go over the policies of the group. And I would not want to necessarily influence the decisions of how we're going to run our clubhouse, plane flights, families, etc. But I will definitely, obviously, have to be part of the conversation. By the time you leave the room, you have these guys empowered to make those kind of decisions. And now, basically, they're running the clubhouse. They're running the airplanes. They're doing all that stuff. And when you do it that way, I think now the communication flows in an even better way. Trust is established. Ideas have been exchanged. You can be constructively critical of one another. And now you got something to work from. So that's what I would do. I would start right now and getting the more pertinent guys and visiting with them individually. And then once the season, when we get to spring training, I would have a meeting conceptually like I described with the lead bulls to try to get some common ground among the entire group.
Last couple minutes here with Joe Maddon on the UMA guest line this morning. And Joe, with this hire, we've heard the term, the phrase, outside of the box type of hire. Now, I know that's a phrase that you're extremely familiar with, but it seems like in today's age of Major League Baseball, it seems like there's more inside the box hires with the front office wanting their involvement with analytics and drawing up lineups and in-game decisions. So talk to us about the difference in philosophy between outside the box versus inside the box, but also the player reaction to maybe some of these outside the box methods.
Well, what we used to be outside the box is now inside the box. So it's not outside the box thinking anymore, right? I think everything has changed. When I first started in 2006, the analytical world was outside the box. That was when I came to the Rays, I was actually doing that kind of stuff on my own with my own methods that I started deriving in the mid 1990s to the point where I got to the 2006 and what we did with the defensive metrics and we wanted the elevated fastball. Changeup was a big deal. We talked about defense and run prevention, those kind of things. That was outside the box. That is inside the box right now. I think if you actually move towards what the Blue Jays are doing right now, what was appeared to do, this past postseason, that would be considered outside the box, which is more conventional thinking, which had happened in the past. So I think it's actually reverse roles. I think conventional thinking has gotten to the point now where if you choose to rely on wisdom, experience, feel, intuition, all the things that had been a part of the past, now you would be considered outside the box. So I think the Vitello hiring should actually be considered in the box.
I love that. Everything's so cyclical in life, isn't it? That is so funny. By the way, just two last quick items for you. One, it's funny you mentioned Salinas, Joe. Did you know that Vitello, his connection to California was he spent 2 summers with the Salinas Packers? Was that the team you were with?
They were the Packers. I was the Salinas Angels. They were the Packers before I got there. I lived down there. Hung out over at Monterey Peninsula, which I always thought I would eventually live there. That was like my favorite place. I love to golf. But yeah, the Salinas Angels at that time, we were pretty good. Moose Stubbe, my manager, Chuck Cartier, we won like 90 games, I think, one year and lost to the Visalia Twins. They were that good. But that's one of my best periods of my life. The Rosarita's Armory Cafe, a little Mexican joint right there. I mean,
yes.
I used to play golf at Salinas Fairways all the time. You pay $25 and you play there the whole month.
So good. I guess you were actually in a minor league team. He was at an independent league team, I think it was. So
right. It was the Angels. It was the Angels. Yes.
That's so good stuff. And then finally, just last baseball question is very few people would be more connected to the Dodgers World Series outside of the Dodgers than you, based on your relationship with Andrew Friedman. You guys were incredibly close in Tampa and worked together and took a team to the World Series, and Shohei Ohtani. Yeah. So, I mean, two of the main guys, the architect and the main star, are people you've spent a lot of time with. So I wondered your reaction to kind of both of those guys' journeys. And, I mean, is Friedman is he secretariat that far ahead of the field? You give Andrew Friedman that much money and there's no stopping him?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, from the beginning, he and I hit it off. Hotel meeting room in Houston in 2005. That's when I interviewed, and immediately I liked the guy. And the thing, when I started working with him the next season, spring training, et cetera, the one thing that really stood out to me, because I had been a scout, and I still am a scout at heart, is that he was a really good scout. I always said to him, you're a good scout. You really see things well. He went to Tulane. He never played pro ball, but a baseball junkie, and he's pragmatic. He doesn't know everything. He asks a lot of good questions. He listens. He challenges in his conversations. He does all of that stuff, which is really, I think, vital to becoming a good scout. So that was really obvious to me in the beginning. We used to go out drinking together. We hung out together. We had a great time, and we argued. And that's the one thing that I'd really like to point out. I think you have to have a contrarian perspective in major league staffs these days, and I'm not so sure that that's nurtured enough. You have to be a contrarian. You have to be able to argue and then come back and have a beer after the argument. We were able to do that really well down there. And Shohei, he is all of that. He's all of that. He's he's the Babe Ruth, of course he is, and he's as good as he appears to be. Nothing is impossible for him in the baseball sense. He deserves all the accolades he gets, and he's a great guy.
And so as Giants fans, as the kids would say, we're just cooked. As the kids would say, we're cooked. We got no shot.
Of course you do. That team's aging a bit too. They won that World Series not because they played better, but because as a veteran group that was unflappable, they took advantage of kind of baseball luck. They really did. And it's one thing to be the recipient of baseball luck. It's the other thing entirely to be able to take advantage of it, and they did. Whereas I thought the Blue Jays played a wonderful 7 games of baseball. They're kind of like a poster child for the resurgence in actual baseball and baseball fundamentally, I thought. So it was kind of two different groups. The Dodgers win because of that. They're definitely gettable next year. The third time through is not going to be easy, and so no, I think actually you're in a desirable or a good spot.
All right, Joe, very, very much enjoyed the conversation. Always liked you talking about baseball from afar, and great to have you on the show. And you go have a nice Veterans Day and a wonderful holiday season. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
You also, guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.